debt, when used appropriately, is extremely positive. We've just been engraved that debt is a negative thing, that if I'm going into debt, it's because my business isn't doing right. And that's completely erroneous,
I'm Bryce Gracie, host of the EZee E-Commerce podcast, and this podcast is dedicated to boosting your trajectory towards international success through connecting you with e-commerce and Amazon experts, all with something different to offer.
Today I spoke with Alexandra Ramirez from SellersFunding about how using ZEE and a funding partner at the same time can accelerate your global expansion, and not to mention how using a funding partner instead of a bank and the flexibility that comes with a FinTech can be advantageous to your business, as well as making the most of the peaks in your sales journey to maximize the amount of funding that you can get on a regular basis. But if you want to learn more, obviously you need to stay tuned. Welcome back to yet another episode of the EZee E-Commerce podcast. This episode is all about funding for sellers and merchants. And joining me to chat about e-commerce funding is someone with a fantastic financial services background, holding an MBA in international business with experience in sales and customer experience at all levels, and representing SellersFunding as Director of Sales. It's a pleasure to have Alexandra Ramirez on the podcast with us today. Welcome, Alex. How are you doing?
Good, Bryce. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm fantastic, thanks. No, it's an absolute pleasure. Despite the tremendous heat in the US, how's things going otherwise?
It's going fantastic. We're about to be together in an event in Austin where it's going to be even much hotter. So hopefully you're enjoying good weather for now.
I'm very excited. But to kick things off, would you like to tell me a little bit about yourself and about SellersFunding and what you guys are doing that side?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Alexandra, or better known as Ali, and I've been at SellersFunding for a little over 2 years. I am the Director of Sales, and I also work with our partnerships team for any partnership that would like to work with us. And what we do is we are a full suite of financial services for e-com sellers of any type. So we work with Amazon, Shopify, eBay, Magento, pretty much any marketplace that you can be selling on, we can work with them. And not only for funding, but for multiple ways. So we want to be a one-stop shop for anything that has to do with financial services.
Okay, wow. I mean, I guess that seems pretty straightforward in terms of the services that you provide. But can you go into a little bit about, I know you've got two key or core products at this stage. I think one of it might be Daily Advance. But can you maybe go into your flagship products and how they basically work with sellers?
Absolutely. So our two flagship products are going to be our working capital, or as you mentioned, Daily Advance. The working capital is very straightforward. It's basically being able to lend money to our sellers in multiple different ways. We have APR-based products as well as flat fee percentages taken up front. So they're quite simple products. We can send you an offer within 24 to 48 hours once you connect either a token or a marketplace to our application. Application process takes about 4 or 5 minutes. And as soon as you receive an offer, you can actually move forward whenever you're ready. You can receive money within 24 and 48 hours as well. So that's on our working capital side. It really just makes it extremely easy for anyone looking not only for inventory, but it could be for marketing spend, advertising spend, for anything that they're looking business use, they can actually use our funds for. And that's really the core product that we offer, not only to our US sellers, but as well for anyone that is based in other jurisdictions that we could work with.
Okay, brilliant. So you speak about the different jurisdictions that you work with. Can you maybe go into the countries that you're able to service from
Absolutely.
Where the entity has to be based?
So we can work with anybody that has an entity in the US, in Canada, in the UK, as well as Australia. For Australia, we do have a caveat. They do have to be selling in UST. However, for all of the other jurisdictions, they can be selling in any of the marketplaces that we service, such as US, UK, or Canada. Other than that, it doesn't matter where our sellers live. They just have to have an entity in one of these countries, along with a bank that can receive those currencies. If you don't have a bank that can receive that currency, we also have a product for that, which is a free wallet. And basically, we provide you with the banking details for you to receive money in different currencies, such as USD, Euro, GBP, and Canadian dollars.
Brilliant. And do you have like a threshold that they have to be meeting on a either a monthly or an annual basis from a revenue perspective for them to qualify for your services?
Yeah, so each one of our products does have different thresholds. For our funding options, we do require them to have at least between $20,000 and $25,000 in revenue for the past 3 months. So each month for the past 3 months. We also require 6 months of business history, but then the last 3 months will be the most essential. If you've been selling for more than a year, we will probably be able to send you a larger amount because we'll look at the full historical and seasonality of that category and of where the marketplace is being sold. So that's for our threshold for working capital. For daily advance, we actually have a smaller threshold, which I know we didn't really dive into just yet, but for daily advance, we service the same jurisdictions. And what it does is allows you to receive money every single day based on your sales from the previous day. So rather than waiting for Walmart or Amazon to pay you every 14 days or sometimes much longer because they tend to hold funds for a multitude of reasons, we actually can advance you a percentage of your sales from the previous day every single day. So it really helps with cash flow. And again, we can work with the same jurisdictions. And you only need to be selling at least $5,000 to $7,000 a month and only need 3 months of business history. So we always can start with somebody that's maybe just starting out in a new jurisdiction or expanding to another area of Amazon, for example, or of Walmart. We can start the daily advance and then slowly we can move them into an offer for working capital.
Okay, brilliant. And earlier you mentioned how you can facilitate and basically assist with funding, not regardless, but with most e-commerce platforms out there as well as marketplaces. Would you say there are any major differences in the capital needs of a seller when using a different marketplace, like say Magento versus WooCommerce or Amazon versus Mercado Libre?
So a lot of the things that are really good for us is that because we can look at all the marketplaces, we can put it all as one sole offer. So as long as you're selling under one same entity, we actually can take sales from all of your marketplaces and send you an offer, and you can utilize them to your needs. So you can utilize them to expand your Walmart or to expand your Amazon. Really, it's going to be depending on your business need. One thing that we do see is that all our customers that are on more than one marketplace do tend to thrive much quicker, or at least scale in a more efficient and quick way.
Okay, cool. So you can be, say for instance, you're doing really well on Amazon and you're looking to scale on, say, Mercado Libre in South America. As long as you are doing relatively well on Amazon, then you can use that funding as well to fund your expansion onto a different marketplace, say in South America.
Yeah, and we currently don't have, for example, Mercado Libre is one of the only ones that we currently don't have connection just yet, but we always can look at your sales as long as, again, they're under the same entity, and we can all put it together under one same offer for you to utilize for any of your other marketplaces. But if you're using across Amazon and Shopify, for example, in the same entity, but in different times that you need to expand, you can absolutely use that funds for both of those.
Okay, brilliant. So I guess that was just an example. I understand.
No worries.
It's a little bit more relevant at this stage. But I guess there's so many, I want to say, different funding options available. I think I saw you guys published a blog relatively recently about, I think it was 7 or 6 different ways that you can get funding as a seller. And it ranges from like your family and friends, which is obviously, I guess, not as recommended. But then you can get bank, you can get private investor, as well as then you get, I guess, from a FinTech, which I guess SellersFunding would fall under.
Yep.
But what would you say is the main benefit of going through a FinTech opposed to a rigid, big bank, scary bank, if we can put it that way?
I would say there's a few things, right? But right off the bat is the flexibility that we allow our sellers. So when we send you an offer, you can choose how much and what the terms are going to be when you choose to draw. So if I were to send a seller, let's say $350,000 offer, they don't have to use that full amount today. or even in the next few weeks. We do send that offer for a month, and each month we can continue to review and update that offer as need be. If I chose to only draw, let's say, $200,000 today for 6 months, my next draw for the amount that's remaining can be a 12-month or 18 months. So we have very flexible terms. And in addition to that, one of the things that really makes us stand out compared to some of our competitors and as well as banks is our interest only or our grace periods. So we have for our APR products something called interest only. So between 4 and up to 6 months, we will allow you to pay exclusively the interest. And reason we do that is because we know supply chain and logistics today can take a little bit longer than it did a few years ago. So expecting somebody to start paying their loan when they're typically using it for inventory, their inventory isn't going to be with them for a few weeks or sometimes even months. So we're allowing them to make those payments a little bit more manageable until that inventory does come in and they can start making those larger payments. And that's something that's fully flexible and up to the client to choose how many months they have of interest only. When they also use our revenue advantage, which is our flat rate, we don't take a percentage of sales over time. We just take it up front automatically. You know how much your payments are going to be. They are going to be stagnant amounts every 2 weeks. And the great thing about that one is we offer a grace period because there's no interest on our revenue advance. We can just offer you a grace period. So those are things that are more e-commerce friendly versus a bank that's going to be quite rigid and strict and really no wiggle room. So those are a few things that are really make it helpful. Lastly, we have over 5 or 6 years of historical data of categories. So we understand the seasonality that goes along with Amazon, with Shopify, with Walmart, and all the big players in the space. And we take those things into consideration when we do send somebody an offer. So our offers aren't meant to strangle our sellers, but they are typically going to be way more helpful and less strict than what a bank would be.
I was literally just going to comment on how good that kind of offer would be for a seller who's selling seasonal products, because it allows you to maximize those like in season. Say, for instance, it is something related to cooling you on hot summer's day. Obviously, then they could still use a SellersFunding product or service to ensure that they are getting the most out of their sales on an annual basis.
Absolutely.
Not only kind of strangling themselves in the winter times where their products may not be selling as well as they have been.
Yes, exactly. And that's really, again, why some of our sellers, even though they may have offers from Amazon directly or they have offers from banks, typically go with us because of the flexibility of the terms or because they know that their offer is going to be more in line with what their business need is, because we are tailoring and targeting to the e-commerce environment rather than a regular mom and pop store, brick and mortar.
Okay. And I guess like we've also seen in the last 2 or so years, we've seen incredible ups in the e-commerce industry, but we've also, and I think we're starting to see a little bit now, is some downs that some e-commerce stores are experiencing. I think you guys also wrote some content like most recently about ensuring your business is future-proof to basically build your business in a way that you can withstand these downtimes as well as maximize the uptimes going forward. But what would you say is the best way to future-proof your business from a funding perspective right now?
I think one of the most important things that a lot of people, it's not really at their forefront. If they don't need money, they're not going to look for money. They're not going to look for a facility. They're in a good position and we're not going to need it. We'll get there when we get there, right? Something that I will always tell anybody that asks me from a funding perspective, what's the biggest mistake that you see? It's that. It's not looking for funding when you think you don't need it, because the time to secure a facility for your business is when you don't need the money. And why I say that is because you're in a good position of steady growth, your sustainable growth, right? And that's what's going to show a strong business. That's when you're going to be able to get a better rate, a larger offer with better terms, rather than when you're going to those downhill times, when you start looking frantically, who do I want to work with? Who do I trust? Who can I get the best terms with? And sometimes end up making a rash decision because not everyone will give you the terms that typically you would want, or want to move forward with, right? So it's always good to plan ahead, use the times that you are doing very, very well to reach out to SellersFunding to see how much we could potentially offer you. And that offer will be available as long as a token or a marketplace is connected. Every single month will be refreshed. It can even be increased even if some amount of money is taken out of the line, you can actually get an increase even if you haven't paid off your full line. So there's a few things there. Is just that the biggest and most important thing is finding who you trust when you don't need the money, so that when you do, you know exactly what you need to do and how to move forward.
And I'm sure that's actually rather rare, because I think it's been drummed into a lot of people's skulls that you should only look for, let's say, debt in the times that you are struggling financially, not to use it to your advantage when you're already on top. So it's almost like a mindset shift that needs to happen.
Absolutely, because debt, when used appropriately, is extremely positive. We've just been engraved that debt is a negative thing, that if I'm going into debt, it's because my business isn't doing right. And that's completely erroneous. Debt, when used for the right things, can be extremely beneficial for any business and actually necessary for the success and growth of multiple businesses. Most of the businesses that we have seen not only strive, but they can start at a $50,000 line and go all the way to $500,000, $750,000 offer from us because of the growth that they're seeing, because they're injecting it into their business appropriately, whether it's in inventory or advertising or marketing, because we don't force you to use it for one thing or the other versus some of our competitors who do.
Brilliant. So that's, the main points I'm getting out of that is make the most of it while you're still on top of your service. And kind of accelerate your growth going forward with some additional funding. And I guess that's also, using debt the right way. We can also take a page out of that book from our personal lives as well as managing our own finances correctly. But I guess that'd be a time for a
whole other hour for just that, right? And one other point to make on that as well is about using your funding correctly is having a plan, having a projection for the next year or next 3 years of your business to know what the growth is expected, or a true growth, and then what a goal growth would be, and updating those projections accordingly, because things happen. The pandemic really was something that nobody expected, and nobody knew how that was going to go for any business. And for some people it was amazing, and for some people it was truly detrimental. So having those projections and continuously updating them when you do need to go ahead and moving forward with your funds is going to make it all the more easier, because you know exactly where you need to insert your funds, as well as having financials every month rather than waiting towards the end of the year or the beginning of the year. When you start putting the P&L and balance sheet together, the people that I see are the absolute most successful that we work with every single month are updating their financial sheets and their balance sheet and P&L. And that's very essential to know where you stand. So that really will help as well to understand where to use the funds in an effective way.
Brilliant. So it's accurate forecasting as well as just plain financial statements management when it comes to that, which I think is, theoretically it is simple to manage, but I'm sure it is probably overlooked by a lot of sellers because their minds are in 100 different places.
Absolutely.
At once. So we have the forecasting aspect, but if I'm a seller and I'm curious about whether I should need funding now, at SellersFunding, do you have specific metrics that you use to kind of analyze whether a seller could require cash flow funding, like maybe a liquidity ratio or a debt equity ratio? Are there any metrics that a seller could look out for and do themselves to kind of make sure that they are getting funding at the right time?
So what we do have is we have a data analytics tool. It's called Signals. You can connect currently it's only for Amazon and Shopify, and it does give you additional metrics that typically only we utilize to be able to evaluate the business and choose to send an offer. So we are sharing some of those metrics with Amazon and Shopify sellers as long as they're connected. And it will not only allow you to see some of the metrics that we utilize to be able to send an offer, but it also lets you see what we believe is the amount that your business could be worth. We can absolutely also edit that according to your cost of goods sold and a few additional fields that you can enter according to your specific business. But it's a few data points that typically are not readily available with no cost.
Okay. So that's something that you almost as a seller shouldn't not be using just because it's free to use, and it's valuable information that you could need to further your business.
And once it's connected, we can not only show you all these features, but it'll allow you to apply to any or all of our products, and they're all free to apply. There's no purchase necessary or no, you're not forced to utilize it once you do get an offer. So it's really good for you to see, like, this is how much I could potentially have at this time, and know when you are ready to move forward with it.
Brilliant. No, that's great. So then, when we talk about global expansion, I know that's quite a relevant topic for ZEE and for ZEE clients as well. How could our clients, the guys who are listening to this podcast right now, how could they benefit from using yourself, using SellersFunding, to expand into other countries, into other markets?
A few different ways. We have our working capital is not only sent in US dollars. We can actually fund as well in Great British pounds, Canadian dollars, and euros. So when you are looking to expand, and we are working with the major marketplaces right now and working on expanding to a few other ones as well. But currently those are the currencies that we can fund in. So it's not only US based, which we know that most of our competitors only work in one or two currencies. So that's one of the ways that we can work with somebody in terms of expansion. And in addition to that, we can offer you the digital wallet, which we talked earlier. You can receive money in multiple currencies from multiple marketplaces for free. You can hold money in that currency, again, for free, and you only pay when you actually go ahead and make that exchange. And one thing to note is that we're very close to mid-market rate, because that's not really one of our bread and butter type of products, right? Our bread and butter is the daily advance and our working capital. This one is just something that we utilize to help sellers be able to accompany our other products. So you can, for a very affordable rate, be able to change those currencies, and you can even use it to pay your suppliers in their own currency. We support about 37 or 38 currencies in over 200 countries. So if you have suppliers overseas as well, that's another way that we can benefit, and your sellers can benefit from as well.
And I guess when expanding into another country, say for instance, you are a US-based seller looking to sell on Amazon in the UK or in Germany, it's good to use additional funding to start start your shop that side, because there can often be unforeseen expenses that come up, especially when targeting a new culture, a new country, a new different base. So I guess it's good to have that good financial backing in order to make that expansion, to make the most of it and not be strapped for cash and only do, say, for instance, if you're using ZEE services, one shipment, and you only have limited inventory sitting in a fulfillment center or a 3PL there. But you must make the most of it using a partner such as SellersFunding to really blast the market.
Yeah, so you could actually get the funding because it's under the same entity in US dollars, let's say, in that example, and use our digital wallet to make that payment in that 3PL in that country. So wherever that country is where your merchandise is sitting, you could utilize that to pay either in US dollars or whatever currency that you would need to pay it for. So all the ways to expand that you guys are being able to provide these services, we can actually be a good partner in addition to help those sellers expand appropriately.
I love it. So wrapping up, Ali, where can our listeners find you if they're looking for you online or looking for SellersFunding?
So my email is definitely the best way to get a hold of me. We do travel to shows a lot, so email is the best way. Alexandra, Alexandra at sellersfunding.com. And feel free to reach out for any questions, whether it's to contact us about starting on registration or application with us. You can contact me about any questions with your current account or if you're just interested in finding out more details, or sending over, recommending a friend who's a seller, any of the above or anything that I'd be happy to help with.
Brilliant. And I'm sure we'll definitely include a link to your page as well as your email address in the description of this podcast. But Ali, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on our show. I think as a partner, it just makes sense to be aligned with a funding partner when looking to grow your business overseas. And from what I can see, SellersFunding is a global partner to make that happen. So really appreciate having you on the show as well as
happy to be here, and I appreciate you having me on.
Thanks for watching the EZee E-Commerce podcast. Click here for more episodes and follow us on our socials link below. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe.